Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ellen and I talk about all things houseplant related. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a very common problem in houseplant care, overwatering. So I thought that I would hit you up today with 5 of my top tips to stop you from overwatering your plants. So the first tip on today's list is going to be know your plant. So it's really important when you buy a new plant that you learn the care tips for this particular plant. Now there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of videos out on YouTube for each individual plant that you could own. Some of them might be harder to find, but there are plenty of care tips out there. If not for the specific plant, then at least for the sort of group of plants that you're looking at, and they will really help you to understand the needs of your plant. Now, a lot of plants do not need as much water as we think, and I think this is where people go wrong, is that they don't understand the needs of that plant that they've bought. So before you go crazy and fill your house with hundreds of houseplants, make sure you take the time to learn what each type of plant needs, how often it needs watering, and things like that. You can also use things like sticky notes or like little messages to yourself on each plant that you can stick on to remind you of how often they need watering or when you last watered your plant or something like that. Although that's a little bit more time consuming, if you are really struggling with this overwatering issue, that could really help you. Another thing that you could do is you can actually look into your plant's needs before you buy it. So you could specifically seek out certain plants that like a lot more moisture or thrive off of being overwatered. So these plants are the ones that you're going to find will really be good for you if you are an overwaterer. Especially, I know I have loads of friends that always say to me, I can't keep a plant, I always overwater it. So for people like you, I would suggest things like ferns, maybe like terrariums, you know, like the little top pot terrariums where you don't actually water them, you just spray inside. They can be quite good to look after for overwaterers because it's quite hard to actually add too much moisture to those kind of environments. But yeah, so do look into those sorts of plants that actually enjoy a lot more water, and that might be the best way forward for you. Tip number 2 on my list is your soil. So if you do have those plants that you're overwatering and you're struggling to kind of understand what their needs are, you know, you're struggling with root rot or really soggy soil that you just can't get dry, the best thing for you to do would be to change out the soil. Now, most soil mixtures, you can add certain things to them to be able to aerate your soil and create more of a water flow through your soil. So instead of buying a specific soil for each individual plant, which you can do, and there are some great companies out there that do that sort of thing. One that I use quite often is Soil Ninja. However, if you want to try it yourself, or you have some soil at home that you just want to buy something to add to it, so you can buy particular types of substrate to work with your soil that you already have. So you can buy things like perlite, vermiculite, like chunky bark pieces, lava stones, anything like that that's really going to make your soil nice and chunky. Mix it in there and use that instead. And what that will do is it will really help flush out the water. It will hold enough water to be able to water your plant and keep it healthy, but it will just get rid of any excess water instead of it holding in the soil. So that is really important if you do have those plants that don't like overwatering, and you're just popping a bit too much water in there. My third tip is about your plant pots. Now, a lot of people buy a pot and pop their plant in it and don't think about what that's actually doing for the plant. Now, I tend to do 2 different types of things. I tend to have terracotta pots, which normally they have one individual hole at the bottom. And the terracotta material absorbs water and dries out your soil quicker. So when you water your plant, the plant will take the water that it needs, and then whatever water is left in the soil, the terracotta will really soak that out and absorb that water and then dry out. So that will be really helpful for you if that is something that you're struggling with. Just make sure that it is terracotta or clay and it hasn't got any sort of glazing or gloss or anything on the inside of it, because that will stop it from soaking out. Your second option for plant pots, which I tend to use for most of mine, is to have a cover pot and a nursery pot. So your nursery pot are like the little plastic pots with all the holes in the bottom. So those holes in the bottom are really important for drainage of your plants, but you can also use them for bottom watering as well, which might be something that you want to venture into if you do overwater your plants quite a lot. It means that with those plastic pots, you can pop your plant in there. It's got the holes at the bottom for the drainage of the water, so that it's not being held in the soil. And then you can put it in a nice cover pot or basket or something like that, just to make it look really pretty. So yeah, there are a few options there. And like I said, you can venture down the bottom watering route, especially if you've got holes in the bottom. That can really help with, you know, you pour a little bit in there, let it soak it up, and then put more in, let it soak it up, that kind of thing. However, if you do leave it sat in water, that can be a bit of an issue. So be careful with that one. So moving on to tip number 4, that is self-watering pots. Now, there are lots of different types and brands and things like that out there. So I'm not going to suggest anything in particular, especially as personally, I'm not a massive overwaterer, so I don't tend to use this sort of thing. However, it is something that I've been looking into recently, because the more plants I get, the easier I might find it to have self-watering pots. So it's definitely something I've been starting to research into. But yeah, self-watering pots can be great. They allow you to basically pop water in the bottom, and then there's different types, but the ones that I've been looking at, you basically put water in the bottom and then it uses string to soak up the water into the bottom of the plant. And then that obviously goes up through the roots. So that can be quite a handy one. You can also get things called hydro spikes, which you basically pop one end into your soil, the other end goes into like a glass of water that sits at a lower level, and it basically just slowly sucks water through the pipe and almost like drip feeds your plant. The water, so that could be another really good solution. Once again, a great solution for if you're going away on holiday. I did actually sort of briefly discuss them in my holiday video that I did a little while ago. So yeah, they are some great options for you to look into. Once again, there are quite a few videos out there on YouTube talking about different types of self-watering plants and hydro spikes and things like that. So do go and check those out if you want to go down that route. 5th on my list today, which is kind of in a similar bracket to what we've just been talking about, is a water meter. So water meters are fantastic little tools basically to assist you with watering. And this can work both ways. It doesn't just help with overwatering, it can also help with underwatering. So basically what you do is you take the moisture meter, you pop it in your soil. I actually have one here, but this is just the cheap one. This isn't anything fantastic. And basically what happens is, you see how that's currently blue? That means that it's been watered, and then that will turn red when it dries out. However, good water meters, which I don't actually have, I had one a little while ago, but I don't know what I've done with it. But you can get some really good ones that actually have a gauge on it, and it measures wet, moist and dry basically, and it will tell you, it will hit the red and it'll be about 2 or 3 when it hits that really dry point, and that's when you know that the plant's completely dried out. Basically what it does is it has this bit at the bottom that sits down in the soil, and that will tell you, it'll basically soak up any moisture and tell you if it's moist or not. However, they don't necessarily work on really barky mix. However, this is quite a barky mixture, and it works quite well on this. But this is sort of like this is a perfect, well-draining soil, what we were talking about earlier. Yeah, that'll work really well. Got that sticker come off. But yeah, so that's a really nice barky mixture look with lots of different barks and perlite and things like that in there. So that's a perfect one for if you're overwatering. A little bit off subject there. So those are my top 5 tips to stop you from overwatering your plants. I really hope that they do help. If you have any other tips of your own that you use quite regularly, or anything that you found is quite helpful, do pop those in the comments down below, just so that others can see, and we can have a little bit of a chat about those. It would be fantastic. And I look forward to seeing you in my next one. Bye.